Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. So today I'm back to talk about the books that I am looking forward to, the new releases that are coming out in the next 3 months. I've done 2 videos like this before and they were for 6-month periods, January to June, July to December. And I was going to do the same thing this time around, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that I end up not having that much to say for like October to December time. Usually we don't have as much knowledge about the last 3 months, and it's not to say that there aren't some fantastic books coming out, just that at this vantage point right now in July I don't know about them because people aren't promoting them. So I've decided from now on with these anticipated new releases videos that I am just going to do it in 3 monthly periods, so doing January to March, April to June, July to September, and then finally October to December, which means 2 extra videos a year with anticipated releases. Like, what's not to love about that? I've been having a look at the different books that are coming out towards the summer and the beginning of autumn, and there's some really interesting titles coming. And some that I want to mention, not necessarily because I'm really keen to read them myself, but I'm just really keen to hear the conversation around them. I feel like they are books that people are going to be talking about. People are going to have opinions. So yeah, let's just get into the books. I'm doing this as much as possible in publication order. So starting off on the 8th of July, we have Reputation by Lex Croucher, YouTube's very own. I've been really keen to hear more about this ever since Lex announced it. The hilarious debut novel, a classic rom-com with a Regency era twist. For fans of Mean Girls, Julia Quinn and Jane Austen. Like, already so much to be excited for with just that little tagline. Abandoned by her parents in favour of a sea view, middle-class Georgiana Ellis has moved to a new town to live with her dreary aunt and uncle. At a particularly dull dinner party, she meets the enigmatic Frances Campbell, a wealthy socialite and enchanting member of the in crowd. Through Frances and her friends, Georgiana is introduced to a new world of wild parties, drunken debauchery, mysterious young men with alluring hands. Okay. And the sparkling upper echelons of Regency society. But high society isn't all it's cracked up to be, and the price of entry might be more than Georgiana is willing to pay. This witty rom-com about status, friendship and first loves explores sex and consent in a time when reputation was absolutely everything, and feminism in a time when women's rights were a completely different story. It's full of lavish parties, handsome men on horseback, and a sense of humour that would have given Austen herself a chuckle. We know that I'm a big fan of both Mean Girls and Jane Austen, and funnily enough, this month I listened to the audiobook of the first Bridgerton book for the first time, and I do quite like that poking fun at this time period and the conventions. So yes, I am most intrigued. Next up, coming out on the 15th of July, we have Drunk, How We Sipped, Danced and Stumbled Our Way to Civilization by Edward Slingerland. This is a history book that I've been really intrigued by, purely because I absolutely love Mark Forsyth's book on the same topic, which was A Short History of Drunkenness, How, Why, Where and When Humankind Has Gotten Merry from the Stone Age to the Present, which I think is basically like a precursor to this book. I imagine that Drunk is going to be a little bit more academic in tone, whereas the Mark Forsyth is more of a popular history. While plenty of entertaining books have been written about the history of alcohol and other intoxicants, none have offered a comprehensive, convincing answer to the basic question of why humans want to get high in the first place. Drunk elegantly cuts through the tangle of urban legends and anecdotal impressions that surround our notions of intoxication to provide the first rigorous, scientifically grounded explanation for our love of alcohol. Drawing on evidence from archaeology, history, cognitive neuroscience, psychopharmacology, did I get that? Did I get it? Social psychology, literature and genetics, Slingerland shows our taste for chemical intoxicants is not an evolutionary mistake as we are so often told. In fact, intoxication helps solve a number of distinctly human challenges, enhancing creativity, alleviating stress, building trust and pulling off the miracle of getting fiercely tribal primates to cooperate with strangers. Our desire to get drunk, along with the individual and social benefits provided by drunkenness, played a crucial role in sparking the rise of the first large-scale societies. We would not have civilization without intoxication. Interesting. From marauding Vikings and bacchanalian orgies to sex-starved fruit flies, blind cavefish, and problem-solving crows, Drunk is packed with fascinating case studies and engaging science, as well as practical takeaways for individuals and communities. The result is a captivating and long overdue investigation into humanity's oldest indulgence, one that explains not only why we want to get drunk, but also how it might actually be good for us to tie one on now and then. So reading that seems more like a science than a history, but kind of tying in historic case studies. Interesting. Personally, I've never been a drinker myself, so I'm always just like, why is it that people do this? So, you know, always good to have an answer. Then going back to fiction, on the 22nd of July, we have The Lockin by Phoebe Luckhurst. This is one that I think Leanne from Leanne Rose pointed out to me. Helen and Alexa have survived hangovers, dodgy landlords, and most of their 20s together. But can they survive this? While nursing the hangover from hell, a flooded kitchen leads to best friends Ellen and Alexa and hapless housemate Jack into their attic to turn off the water supply. But when Ben, Alexa's date from the night before, walks in, the door slams, the handle breaks, and all 4 are trapped. Cue the worst ever morning after the night before. As the hours tick by, Ellen nurses her sore head and watches as her best friend falls for this handsome stranger, only for a horrifying realization to hit. She is sure she knows Ben from somewhere. Frantically searching her memories, Ellen pieces together exactly how they've met before. Is Ben really who she thinks he is? And most importantly, what on earth is she going to do about it? This is a hilarious story of housemates and hangovers and friendship and dating as four 20-somethings discover what the worst morning after the night before really looks like. Fans of Beth O'Leary, Valerie McFarlane and Dolly Alderton will love this oh-so-relatable tale of what can happen behind closed doors. All of the pull quotes from this are making me think that it's meant to be funny and romantic and cool, but like, the premise alone makes me think, oh my god, he's going to be a murderer, isn't he? I think I'm interested in this just because I'm intrigued. How does Phoebe Luckhurst not make that like a murder story? Then coming out on the 29th of July, we have Cecily by Annie Garthwaite, which is history, I believe, chronicling the life of Cecily Neville, who was very prominent in the Wars of the Roses and was the mother of Edward IV and Richard III, but whom I don't actually know that much about. You were born high, but marry a traitor's son. You bear him 12 children, carry his cause and bury his past. You play the game against enemies who wish you ashes. Slowly you rise. You are Cecily. But when the king who governs you proves unfit, what then? Loyalty or treason? Death may follow both. The board is set. Time to make your first move. Told through the eyes of its greatest unknown protagonist, this astonishing debut plunges you into the closed bedchambers and bloody battlefields of the first days of the Wars of the Roses, a war as women fight it. I don't know, I'm getting the sense from that blurb that it is told in second person, which would be interesting if that's true. When it comes to the Wars of the Roses, I kind of know things about it as it pertains to like Henry VII, Elizabeth of York, Richard III. I know more about the latter part of the Wars of the Roses, so this should definitely be interesting. Next up, non-fiction, and this is a book that I've seen quite a few people already talking about. I remember Scott from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, as well as Olive from A Book Olive mentioning this, and it just sounded so intriguing. Coming out on the 12th of August, we've got The Icepick Surgeon, murder, fraud, sabotage, piracy, and other dastardly deeds perpetuated in the name of science. Science is a force for good in the world, at least usually, but sometimes when obsession gets the better of scientists, they twist a noble pursuit into something sinister. Under this spell, knowledge isn't everything. It's the only thing, no matter the cost. Best-selling author Sam Kean tells the true story of what happens when unfettered ambition pushes otherwise rational men and women to cross the line in the name of science, trampling ethical boundaries and often committing crimes in the process. The Icepick Surgeon masterfully guides the reader across 2,000 years of history, beginning with Cleopatra's dark deeds in ancient Egypt. The book reveals the origins of much of modern science in the transatlantic slave trade of the 1700s, as well as Thomas Edison's mercenary support of the electric chair, and the warped logic of the spies who infiltrated the Manhattan Project. But the sins of science aren't all safely buried in the past. Many of them still affect us today. We can draw direct lines from the medical abuses of Tuskegee and Nazi Germany to current vaccine hesitancy, and connect icepick lobotomies from the 1950s to contemporary failings of mental health care. Kean even takes us into the future, when advanced computers and genetic engineering could unleash whole new ways to do one another wrong. Unflinching and exhilarating to the last page, The Icepick Surgeon fuses the drama of scientific discovery with the illicit thrill of a true crime tale. With his trademark wit and precision, Kean shows that, while science has done more good than harm in the world, rogue scientists do exist. And when we sacrifice morals for progress, we often end up with neither. Then coming out on the 26th of August, we have the follow-up to Pat Barker's The Science of the Girls with The Women of Troy. As we all know, I love a Greek myth retelling. And even though The Science of the Girls was not like a perfect book by any means to me, I still found it intriguing. It was interesting to see how Pat Barker played with the myth and how she chose to tell the story differently to, say, Natalie Haynes or Madeline Miller. And because her previous book focused more on the Greek armies, it was only right for her to focus on the Trojan women. Troy has fallen. The Greeks have won their bitter war. They can return home as victors, loaded with their spoils, their stolen goods, stolen weapons, stolen women. All they need is a good wind to lift their sails. But the wind does not come. The gods have been offended. The body of Trojan King Priam lies desecrated, unburied, and so the victors remain in limbo, camped in the shadow of the city they destroyed, pacing at the edge of an unobliging sea. And in these empty, restless days, the hierarchies that held them together begin to fray. Old feuds resurface, and new suspicions fester. Amid her squabbling captors, Briseis, now married to Alchemist, but carrying the child of the late Achilles, must forge alliances where she can, with young, dangerously naive Amina, with defiant aged Hecuba, and with wild-eyed Cassandra, the unheeded seer. And so begins the path to a new kind of revenge. Briseis has survived the Trojan War, but peacetime may turn out to be even more dangerous. A bit of a stranger non-fiction history that I just saw, and I had to include it because the title and the cover just made me laugh. Coming out on the 2nd of September was Index, a history of the. I just thought that was really clever. And yeah, this is literally just a history of the index and why it was there and how it came to be. Most of us give little thought to the back of a book. It's just where you go to look things up. But here, hiding in plain sight, is an unlikely realm of ambition and obsession, sparring and politicking, pleasure and play. Here we might find butchers to be avoided, or cows that shit fire, or even catch Calvin in his chamber with a nun. It is the secret world of the Index, an unsung but extraordinary everyday tool with an illustrious but little known past. Here, for the first time, the story is told, charting its curious path with the monasteries and universities of 13th century Europe to Silicon Valley in the 21st. Dennis Duncan reveals how the Index has saved heretics from the stake, kept politicians from high office, and made us all into the readers we are today. We follow it through German print shops and Enlightenment coffee houses, novelist living rooms and university laboratories, encountering emperors and popes, philosophers and prime ministers, poets, librarians, and of course, indexers along the way. Revealing its vast role in our evolving literary and intellectual culture, Duncan shows us, for all our anxieties about the age of search, we are all index rakers at heart. And we have been for 800 years. I'm a big fan of a book about books and research. I'm a history student, so obviously I enjoy research myself. There is a guy who is staring. I am up on the first floor, but there is a guy who just locked eyes with me all the way past, walking past the house. So I wonder what he thought I was doing. And then the book that I think a lot of people are anticipating, coming out on the 7th of September, just leaving a moment for Shah to get very excited right now, is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. From the author of Normal People and Conversations with Friends, we've got a new Sally Rooney. I have read both of them as well as her little short story, Mr. Salary, and I really quite enjoyed them. They weren't 5-star amazing books for me, but I always credit Sally Rooney with kind of making me realise what it is that I like in books, which is that I do really love character-focused stories, and hers are definitely that. So I was definitely excited to see that she had a new book coming. Alice, a novelist, meets Felix, who works in a warehouse, and asks him if he'd like to travel to Rome with her. In Dublin, her best friend Eileen is getting over a breakup and slips back into flirting with Simon, a man she has known since childhood. Alex, Felix, Eileen and Simon are still young, but life is catching up with them. They desire each other, they delude each other, they get together, they break apart. Oh, of course. They worry about sex and friendship and the world they live in. Are they standing in the last lighted room before the darkness, bearing witness to something? Will they find a way to believe in a beautiful world? That doesn't give me much about what the plot is, but okay. 4 people in and out of love, that sounds like Sally Rooney to me. Next up, back to my Greek myth retellings, we have Greek Myths, a new retelling by Charlotte Higgins, which is coming out on the 9th of September. In this spellbinding new collection, Charlotte Higgins reinterprets some of the most enduring stories of all time. Here are myths of the creation of Heracles, Theseus and Perseus, the Trojan War and its origins and aftermaths, the tales of Thebes and Argos and Athens. There are stories of love and desire, adventure and magic, destructive gods, helpless humans, fantastical creatures, resourceful witches, and the origins of birds and animals. This is a world of extremes, and one that resonates deeply with our own. Mysterious diseases devastate cities. Environmental disasters tear lives apart. Women habitually suffer violence at the hands of men. Unlike in many previously collected myths, female characters take centre stage. Athena, Helen, Circe and Penelope and others weave these stories into elaborate imagined tapestries. In Charlotte Higgins' thrilling new interpretation, their tales combine to form a dazzling sweeping epic of storytelling and a magnificent work of scholarship and imagination. And that's always what the hook is for any Greek myth retelling. It's really about how the author decides to tell the story, what kind of new spin they can put on it. And whilst there have definitely been a lot of women-focused Greek myth retellings recently, I think there's still like a way around that and a way to really make it fresh and new. And I think especially highlighting the relevance of these stories to today, how we can get like direct comparisons to today, that's kind of the way to go, I think. Next up, coming out on the 16th of September, we have What is History Now? A history text that is not going to be interesting, I think, to anybody other than history people. But if you are into history, especially if you've been a history student, you will recognise the title What is History by E.H. Carr. It's like a classic text. And this is basically Susannah Lipscomb and the great-granddaughter of E.H. Carr, Helen Carr, who is also a historian, coming together to talk about the relevance and the significance of history today and what has changed in the, 60 years since E.H. Carr wrote this book. There are a list of different historians who have all contributed, including Peter Frankopan, Dan Jones, Alex von Tulselman, and others, and it also covers topics that wouldn't have been covered in that original book, including racism and anti-racism, queer history, the history of faith, history of disability, environmental history, imperial history, women's voices, and rewriting the past. Like I say, not one that everybody's going to be interested in, but I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on. And I think there will be a lot of attention on this in like the history community. A couple of books that are coming out that are published by the publisher that I work for, Princeton University Press, that I am very, very excited to see what everybody thinks of are firstly Jane Austen Early and Late by Freya Johnston. This is currently coming out on the 14th of September and is basically analysing Jane Austen's early work, her juvenilia, and kind of commenting on how her juvenilia is often seen as distinct and different from her 6 main novels. Whereas with this book, Freya Johnston is kind of trying to say that no, that shouldn't be the way that they are viewed. They should be seen in conjunction with her later work. And then one of the other books that I'm really excited about, and I know that people are going to be buzzing about this, is 12 Caesars, Images of Power from the Ancient World to the Modern by none other than Mary Beard. Yes, that Mary Beard. And that's coming out on the 28th of September. And this is Mary Beard really focusing on the way that the art that has been made of the Roman emperors over the past 2,000 years has really affected the way that we see them, and is kind of a history of these depictions. It's Mary Beard, so I'm excited. And then finally, a little interesting one is Quentin Blake, A Year in Drawings, coming out on the 30th of September. Quentin Blake is probably most well known for being the illustrator to Roald Dahl's books, and of course I am a child who grew up with Roald Dahl books, and I always loved seeing Quentin Blake's illustrations. Quentin Blake is just an iconic figure to my childhood in a way that I don't think any other illustrator has been. And this is basically a collection of 3,000 drawings that Quentin Blake did between March 2020 and February 2021, so during the pandemic. And as the blurb says, they provide a unique insight into what happens when a great artist is left to his own devices. And I just think that sounds delightful. So yes, those are all of the books that I am excited to read, or at the very least excited to hear other people talking about and seeing what other people make of them over the next 3 months. Do let me know your thoughts about any of these books, and are there any books that you think I should have mentioned? I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.